Ciao a tutti, it's Arom, and this is another episode of my Constellar Propaganda. Again, it's round 6 from Rolltech Monthly 18. I was this was deciding whether I would go into top 8 or not. I'm just gonna speed through the games 1 and games 2 because game 3 is what I'm really interested in showing. Here I just went first, opened Dweller plus Sanctum, and a lot of back row hate that really wasn't very good in this matchup, but I played a little bit conservatively in not trying to go for both moral attacks immediately. Didn't use the Sanctum, but it's kind of whatever because going first really helps in this matchup. Meanwhile, in this second game, I was basically locked with Flying C the entire game, and there's not really too much interesting to show here, in my opinion, because both were pretty slam dunks, pretty much. But there's a lot to be learned from game 3 for both players. And even if you don't play Sylvans, there is a very important lesson to be learned here. So stick around for that. Flank C is amazing versus this deck, but Sylvan is really the best deck to use Flank C because you can even bounce it back with Aurea and go for game very easily, build a lot of pressure. Constellar also can play Flank C very well, just I don't have the space for it and in the side deck, so I'm not playing it, and I'm not currently considering it heavily, but it is something up to consideration. But overall, Flank C helps hurts us more than it helps us. But yeah, here we are at game 3. I go first. I open with Algieri, Chaos, Pollux, Call of the Hunted, Sanctum, and Maxi. Meanwhile, James Ark opens with Lone Fire, Peacekeeper, Princess Party. He's playing a pretty weird brew of Sylvans. He's not playing Hermitry, for example. MST and the Bank. And first things first, I open with Algieri over Chaos because Algieri is a lot less frail turn 1 than he is afterwards because he can get negated more easily. Meanwhile, Pollux cannot. So I'd rather take the risk of getting Max Seed or Vader than have to rely on Algieri later on. But just play this Sanctum pass. And nothing major till now. Activate Sanctum to get a bit more aggressive. And here's the first mistake. I bounced the monster. I did it because I only thought about the next play on the spot, which is Call of the Hunted on Chaos. But the correct play would have been to bounce back back row. And that is mistake number 1. Just if I can clear both back rows, I should probably do that. Because the absolute worst case scenario is he goes he said Kamoshrumo and he excavates into Martial Leaf, and that's pretty much the only case scenario where the set was relevant, at least versus Sylvans. I did get it was me being greedy, trying to go for game immediately, but yeah. The next mistake, well, in this situation, it was also Sylvans. I did not expect them to be playing Torrentials, so I just summoned a 4th monster. Don't do that versus a deck that could be playing Torrential, which is pretty much any deck, really, except Sylvans and Constellars and Lightsworn Ruler, I guess. But here I got greedy. And like even versus possible torrential, I still had the failsafe of play this bounce the Call of the Haunted for moral attack plus max C, so I had something. But yeah, the more summoning the Pollux here was fine. The mistake was entering battle phase without first using Chaos's effect on itself, but mainly on Pollux. Because one of the I knew that going into the battle phase that one of the main backers that was likely to be there was MST, and it was, and this is precisely game, almost precisely, but it's game. But here I changed MST, and mistake number 3. I gave up my last line of defense for nothing, because moral attack is on the field and I cannot get it off the field. And if I had another made Dita level 5, I could have made Pleiades, and then I would have had the moral attack in grave and Pleiades, and that would have been all dandy. But because I didn't, yeah, it was kind of sucky. And also, in this situation, I couldn't because I decided to not run M7 during this tournament, and I realized later that there is an OTK that relies on M7, and I could have done that very, not exactly safely because there is still the set, but I could have done a lot of damage while bouncing both the set cards. And doing a lot of damage versus Sylvan is always very relevant because then they cannot soul charge. If they cannot soul charge, they're a lot less threatening. But yeah, those were 3 major mistakes I did. And here he top decks into Charity, starts wombo comboing off. I have Maxi, but he has the debunk, and you can just go ham and win and stuff. Like I have nothing on him, so just runs over stuff, doesn't pop the moral attack, so he can bounce it, and it doesn't get in the graveyard, and then he decides to activate Kamshrumo, and he pops my set moral attack. And the reasoning he had was best case scenario, I popped the Call of the Haunted. Other best case scenario, he has a set MST, and I popped the set MST, and I want Breaker Skill, and that's what he told me later. The problem is he probably didn't consider the worst case scenario enough, and the worst case scenario was moral attack, and with just the moral attack plus the Call of the Haunted, I had game. And yeah, so when you're deciding if you want to pop a back row versus cat, when it's not an actual trap, like it's not Sanctum, it's not bottomless, whatever, make sure that the worst case scenario is worth it. That you don't instantly lose the game because of the worst case scenario. Here, I didn't expect any real traps, Phoenix Wing, Wind Blast, so I just went for it. Instead of going for a rank 5, I got a little bit greedy. Could have been a bit of an issue if he had Rivalry though. But there was no real way to go get game otherwise, and I had Ignition in case he had a Rivalry, so in this case it was worth it. But yeah, bottom line, be very careful about blind MSTing versus artifact decks. That's it for me. Lesson learned. Leave a like, join the Discord, leave a comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all the good shit, and good.